Hi there, I'm Christine Dunbar from speechmodification.com, and this is my Smart American Accent Training. Welcome to our Friday live question and answer class, where we talk about topics related to American accent training, American English pronunciation, and everything you need to improve your personal and professional communication in American English. I've been happy to see so many new subscribers to the channel lately and so many people attending this Friday class. I really love having your questions and your comments and your feedback on these live classes and on my other videos because it helps me know which topics to talk about in class and which new videos to make to help you with your American accent training. So thank you everyone for subscribing, for being a part of the class, and welcome. You can ask your questions at any time today in the chat, and we'll talk about the topics that you bring up. And the topic that I've chosen for today is talking about the American T sound. So this is something that it can be kind of confusing because we actually make 3 different sounds for the American T. And there's a fairly complex set of rules about when we use which sounds. So today we're going to give you an introduction to all of the different types of sounds for American T. I'll show you a lot of free resources here on the channel and on speechmodification.com that you can use to learn more about it, to practice, and also to decide which of these elements to bring into your speech when you're speaking in American English. I also find this very helpful for people who are struggling with listening to American English because there are things that we do that are quite different from British English, Indian English, and other dialects of English, and many of them have to do with the American T sound. So let's get started. We'll talk about T. And I want to show you that we have the letter T, and this is the IPA symbol for T. And when you look up words in the dictionary, you'll often just see this symbol T. So it's not going to tell you which of the T sounds that Americans typically make in the word. But once I tell you about these sounds, you can listen for it in the speech around you. You can listen for it in the recordings on online dictionaries, and you'll be able to begin to hear, oh yeah, I do hear those differences in the T. So let's start by talking about aspirated T. This is the T sound that we typically use at the beginnings of words. So in words like to and talk and take, in American English, these T sounds are all aspirated. And what that means is that there's a little puff of air when I say the T sound. So when I say to, talk, take, you'll see I'm putting my hand in front of my mouth. I can actually feel that little puff of air. The sound is released and there's a puff of air there. Another thing to note in general about the T sound in American English is where we make the sound. So in some other languages, there's a T and a D sound that are not made in the exact same place in the mouth. So when I say T, my tongue goes up behind my teeth to the little bumpy ridge back there, and it's the tip of my tongue that's touching, and it's not pushing against my teeth. So the difference is, for example, in Spanish, when you say a T sound or a D sound, your tongue touches against your teeth. That's called a dental T. But we make what's called an alveolar T, meaning I'm touching that little bumpy spot behind my teeth. So you can feel this fairly easily. If you say the word no, say an N sound, you can feel your tongue touching up to that same spot. So no and toe, my tongue should go to the same place. Then what happens to make a T sound? A T is called a stopped sound or a plosive sound. The reason for that is that when I make the T sound, my tongue completely stops the air. So there's a moment where there's no sound at all. And then different things happen afterwards, after I stop the air. Plosive means this one, that the air explodes out in a burst and it makes that puff of air sound, talk. So the typical error pattern for the start of words, this is usually true for speakers of some Indian languages, Arabic, a few other languages where you might make what's called an unaspirated T at the start. So instead of to or talk, it might sound more like do or talk. I'm still putting my tongue to that same position, but I'm not letting that puff of air come out. So you want to avoid that because to Americans, that might sound like you're saying do or doc. They can't really hear the difference between a D and your T sound that you're making. So that's one area to look at. I do have a video about initial T and several videos and lessons talking about the different types of T. So you can use the search tools on speechmodification.com and type in T or American T or initial T, and you'll see the lessons and videos there. Also on my channel page, Speech Modification Seattle, there's also a search box there, and you can use that, put in any topic that you're interested in knowing more about, and it'll show you what videos I've already made. If you have trouble finding what you're looking for, leave a comment on this video or on any of my videos, send me an email, and I'll direct you to where the resources are. Or if you have a question that I haven't covered already in one of my lessons or videos, I might create a new lesson or video just for you and for other people, because as I said earlier in the broadcast, the things that you're asking me about, the things that people want to know, really help me know there's other people who have the same question as you. So don't be shy about asking questions and sending information. Okay, so we've talked about one of the three types of T's, and this we know happens at the start of words. What about at the ends of words? At the ends of words, we can use an aspirated T. So I can say not, and I can say hot, and Americans will use an aspirated T both at the beginning and the end. But more frequently at the ends of words, we use what's called a stopped T. That means that, or unreleased. That means that I'm not letting, unreleased, I'm not letting that air come out. And it sounds like hot and not. And the air pattern that we have, it's not incorrect to say hot, and people will understand you well, but it's not as fluent in connected speech if I have to stop and release that air every time. It's hot out today. You can hear how that sounds pretty choppy, versus when I say it's hot, it's not yours, it's not mine. It doesn't have to interrupt the flow quite as much. So that stopped T or unaspirated T, you can find information about that looking under American T, and also looking for final T or how we say T at the ends of words. The way I suggest to try this one out is to practice just making your T fairly quiet at the end. So I'm going to do something I do with my one-to-one clients when I'm working with them, when I'm teaching them about this. We're going to say this word hot several times. The first time we'll use an aspirated T, hot. The next time we'll just use a very quiet little T, hot. And the third time we'll go up to make that T sound, and we won't release the tongue, we won't release the air. So it sounds like this, hot, hot, hot. The important thing is I still move my tongue into that final T position. I just don't let the air release and let it come out. The issue that comes up for some people is that when you're listening to Americans, you can't hear that stopped T. You're not used to listening for that. And it sounds to you like hot without a T sound. And to imitate that, people often, even without realizing, will either stop the air in their throat. It sounds like hot, or they'll just leave the T off. It sounds like ha. So you want to avoid both of those because Americans won't perceive or hear that T sound if you don't close your tongue to where the T goes. So again, a good way to build up this skill is just start at this level with that tiny, quiet little T. So I would do a loud T, hot, a quiet T, hot, and a stopped T, hot. Using the stop T is somewhat cosmetic. It's not necessary to be understood. It's pretty high level in terms of accent, so I wouldn't worry about it that much. But it is something that some of you who are more advanced and really want to have that American sound will find very useful. Lastly, let's look at what's called the flap T, and this usually happens in the middle of words. We also do use both the aspirated T and the stop T in the middle of words. So the rules for a T in the middle of the words are very complicated, but most of the time when the T is between two vowel sounds in the middle of words, like in water, or in better, or getting, we use this flap T. I'm going to clear this off so you can see more details about the flap T because it's getting a little bit messy and complicated. And as I said before, please feel free to ask questions at any time about this topic or other topics that you have questions about for the American accent training. So what is the flapped T? You'll hear other names for this T sound as well. What I like about flap T is it describes what's happening with my tongue. So when I told you before about the initial T, that my tongue blocks the air and releases it, to, t. For the flap T sound, my tongue just very lightly taps up and it doesn't fully block the air. It just touches up and comes back down. So it's the same tongue position. It's the same movement, but I don't build up that air and there's no plosive. There's no big release of the air. The other difference about flap T is that my voice is on. And so T is a voiceless sound. T, t. I don't have to turn on my vocal folds to say that sound versus D, d, d. My voice is on. So flap T is a little bit more like a D. For most people, if you're thinking about trying to make flap T, the easiest way is just to think of it as a light, short D sound. So flap T, it's pretty close, almost equal to a D. So when I say water with a flap T, it's very close to saying something like water with a D. The main difference is if I say water, water with a hard D, I'm really blocking the air and then releasing again, versus water, water, I'm just tapping up lightly and then releasing and having my voice on. So water is an example of the flap T comes in the middle of words when it's between two vowel sounds. We also use the flap T when the word ends with a T and the next word starts with a vowel. So this is something, again, that you don't have to do. You can say water. You can say your aspirated T at the ends of words, but you'll sound more American and also sound more fluent. And notice what those little differences are. Maybe you struggle in the restaurant when you're ordering water, people don't understand you. It could be because of this flap T that Americans just aren't used to hearing water. So as I was saying, the other time that I use flap T, so in the middle of words and then at the ends of words, when the next word starts with a vowel sound. So for example, in phrases like get it, put it, etc., this T becomes a flap T and it almost sounds kind of like get it, get it. So you can hear how if I say get it, it's choppier. I'm using that aspirated T. It doesn't flow as smoothly. Americans link it and say get it and put it. This flap T, when people switch to using a flap T from the other types of T, it's one of the main elements of really sounding American. It makes it very distinctive, the American sound versus British English, Indian English, other dialects of English. And it does help increase your fluency and helps people understand you well. What I suggest for practicing is picking out initially some words like water, better, getting, etc., and just getting used to thinking of it as being kind of a light D. See if you can produce these words with that flap T sound, nice and light, and then choose a couple of phrases that you use frequently. So don't worry about getting it in all words or getting it in all of the time when you're linking, but something that you might say a lot, like get it, oh, I get it, or put it over there, put it in my bag for me, put it in an email, etc. You can begin to practice incorporating those into your speech and have that smooth sound with the flap T. So that's a kind of crash course in American T. There are some more detailed rules about what you use in different contexts in the middle of words and ends of words and in linking. in my videos and in a lesson on my website. So I'll put the link for that website lesson into the chat for you guys so that you can check it out later on your own time if you're interested in getting some more details. This lesson has a long list of words and tells you exactly what happens with the T in those words. Many times, I created the lesson because so many times people will ask me about a particular word and there's a T in the middle, and that is what is making it challenging for them to pronounce it correctly and to notice. Many times people say, well, I can notice that I'm pronouncing this word slightly differently than Americans around me, but I don't really know what that difference is. And so sometimes it is because of that particular T sound. So check out that lesson. I'll show it to you here briefly as well. And when you're looking for, as I said, content, answers to questions on speechmodification.com and on my YouTube channel, I highly suggest using the free practice materials and the search box. So here in the top menu, I can go to free practice and I'll go to online practice free trial. This is where there are lots of lessons, videos, recordings, etc. And you can just scroll through and look at all the different lessons and see what is useful for you. So here's an example of the word literally, which is challenging for a number of reasons, but it does have a flap T in the middle. But if you're looking for something specific, go here to the top and use the search box. And so I'm going to just type in American T, and what will come up is all of the lessons and materials that are related to that topic. So there's some downloads available on my store page, and then we can see here, here's a lesson about linking for American T. Here's some lessons about additional things that have to do with the T sound, etc. So I can go to those lessons and check them out. So for example, linking American T. This was part of the 5x5 challenge, one of my YouTube series, and it walks you through what the error pattern might be, how to correct it, some practice steps, and then additional resources. So YouTube videos, links, and related topics that you can go to directly from that lesson. So check those out on speechmodification.com. American T is also one of the topics covered in my online courses. So if you're interested in checking those out, they have a free 2-week trial. The subscription rate is very low. It's less than $5 a month. So I try to make them very accessible to everyone. Sometimes you may not be sure if online learning is right for you, but if you do like these classes and videos, you'll find that they're somewhat similar. And in the Smart courses, as you can see, you get a free 2-week trial. So you can try it out and see if it's good for you. In the 6-week course, you'll see that you can preview the course and you can see the curriculum. And one of the topics later on in the course is the American T sound. So let's see where that is. So in week 6, getting that American sound is our main topic. And we talk about initial T, final T, all of the different T sounds. So there's additional materials here for you that walk you through step by step how to incorporate these changes, understanding the rules, using them in your everyday speech, in your professional communication. So I highly suggest checking that out on speechmodification.com. And let's see, we have a question about the difference between dark L and light L. So yes, I would be happy to explain that. So that's a great question. So the L sound also has different sounds in American English. And at the beginnings of words, like in the word light or like, that's what we call the light L sound. I make that by putting my tongue basically in the same position I was describing for the T sound. So if I lift my tongue light, I should feel the tip of it contacting behind my teeth. And most of you are correctly making the light L sound at the start of words. Where people tend to have more difficulty is with the dark L, which comes in words like tall or call. where the L is at the end of the word. And so what's happening there is that I'm still lifting my tongue in the front and touching behind my teeth, but excuse me just a minute. Okay, I'm still touching my tongue behind my teeth, but I have a little bit tall. You can hear there's like a tiny hidden schwa sound. It sounds like a better example might be the word feel, because I can really describe that I'm saying the fee part, and then I have a bit of a glide, and then the schwa, fee, yo, o. So when I'm doing that o, the dark L, when I say light, the back of my tongue is somewhat lifted and it's the tip of my tongue touching. When I say fee, yo, o, then I'm only lifting the tip of my tongue, and my tongue is mostly staying in that schwa position for the feel, o. I do have a video describing the two types of L, so let's see if we can find that lesson for you as well. And I think you'll find that it's helpful to practice in specific words, and also, so if I go to my homepage, again, to free practice. You can also look on the YouTube channel and type in American L or Final L. So I'm going to use the search box and I'll just type in Final L. And this is something that's also covered in the online courses. It can walk you through the help with that. But I would say, looking at my American L lesson, this walks you through the light L and the dark L in a little more detail and more organized than I just told you now. So check that out. And then you can also check out some information about what's called syllabic L, and that's in words like little and Seattle, where the L comes at the end and it functions like a syllable. Hopefully that was helpful for you. Okay, let's see if we had another question. Okay, so thank you so much for that question. That's definitely a challenging sound to make and a good topic for additional classes. We have covered that in the past and we will cover it again in the future. So thank you for bringing that up. If you have other questions and comments, please feel free to ask them now. And if you're watching this video not as the live broadcast, you can always leave your comments and questions and I'll return back and check and let you know resources and answers to those questions as well. Okay, so thank you so much for being a part of class today. We did mostly talk about the American T, but we got a little bit of input from you as well on some other topics. I look forward to seeing you again next week. We'll talk probably about, again, some pronunciation topics. And you can see some previews of what we'll be talking about on the channel page. We have a community section there where we have polls and resources for you during the week so that you can be thinking ahead to what we'll cover in class. I really appreciate everyone being a part of class today. Thank you so much, and I look forward to seeing you again soon on speechmodification.com. I'm Christine Dunbar. Remember, if you want to sound American, you can do it. speechmodification.com.